Hi, my name is Nina Lee, and I'm hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live.
Congratulations with your new single, Lift Up. Before we actually talk about your single, I want to talk about your voice because it was like something that like immediately, like I'm like, this voice is incredible. And I loved how you started the song with such a low range, and then it just like it took me somewhere else after towards the middle of the song. Talk to me about your sound, like discovering how to sing the way that you do, because I know you've been doing this for some time.
Yeah, I think I've always sounded like this. I've always had a very raspy type of voice. I grew up, when I was a kid, my parents told me before I got my tonsils out, I sounded like I smoked a pack of cigarettes. I sounded like a really old, like, woman and like a 3-year-old's body. So I always had like a grit to my voice. And I think that I always had like a soul that I needed to like put out there. It was beyond my years that I wanted to like put out there, but I didn't really hear anybody that sounded like I did when I was younger until I really heard when I was maybe 8 or 9, I started really listening to Amy Winehouse. And I was like, wow, that's someone who I kind of sound like. And she's doing it because I was really listening to pop stuff before that time. And I didn't know that you could really become somebody with a voice like that. And I was so in awe of that, so that really helped me find my voice and find my own sound, because I don't want to sound like anyone else. I want to be authentic to myself. But I think that hearing her really allowed me to have the freedom to do that. And with, you know, all of the inspirations and the music inspirations that I have, I'm able to use bits and pieces and see what fits for me and how I want to portray myself.
The fact that you mentioned you've always had that raspy voice. I feel like that raspy voice hinders people. I feel like people get embarrassed by that voice, and then they don't want to even like try and sing or any of that. Did you experience yourself like going through that? When you were like, I can't be a singer, not with this voice. Like because I've heard so many stories in the past that just people don't like their voice when it's raspy.
Yeah, I don't think, for me at least, I grew up in a very musical household. My dad played the guitar since I was young, since I was a baby, and it was really always such a constant in my life, always. And I think that before I even realized that music was what I wanted to do, I think subconsciously I knew that. And I always, there's so many things in life that you can be insecure about. And I have those things as well as other people. But for me, my voice was always something that was a little bit different than everybody else's, and was something I had up my sleeve, like a little, if I didn't know what to say, or if I was in a situation where I felt uncomfortable, it was something I kind of had up my sleeve. I could just whip out a song, and break the ice somehow. That was my way of communicating with people, I guess, when I wasn't able to with words.
As you mentioned, like if you grew up in such a musical family, um, did you ever did you ever need any kind of like vocal lessons to be able to like sing the way that you do today? Because like I said, like just the beginning of Lift Up, where it's like you're on a deeper tone and then you're kind of rising it towards the middle. Like I don't feel that's something that just anybody could do. Like I feel like you really have to go through some training for that. So did you have any training for your vocals?
I did, yes. I think that it's important to, when you're singing, to do it correctly, because you can sing a certain way and then your voice can really burn out. And I learned that from a young age. I started singing lessons when I was about 6, and I continued to do that. And as I grew older, I realized the importance of, vocal health, and not taking that for granted, because you can't just sing and sing and sing without warming up and warming down, because otherwise you can't sustain that. So I've been lucky enough to have teachers that have really taught me well. and shown me that to maintain a healthy voice and have it last for the length of a career, I need to, maintain that and condition it, because it's, singing, it's like any instrument or, sport. You have to condition, like a swimmer, they do laps and they practice, or a basketball player. It's any type of, it's really not a sport, but like it's something that you have to condition to maintain. And I guess it's the same with anything.
And how does that affect your writing process when you're making new music? Do you have that in the back of your head, like, you know, how to write the songs, how to kind of write those pockets of how you're going to deliver? Like, what's that behind the scenes like for you?
For when I'm writing a song, for me, I say this in my life, I'm a person that I really like structure and I like planning. And when I don't know, it's hard for me to grasp the concept of not knowing in the future. That's like a fear of mine. I don't like that. I don't like not knowing. So especially during a pandemic where nobody knows what's happening, it's very, anxiety invoking. And for me, when it comes to music, it's the exact opposite. I don't really play by any rules. I don't have any structure. I just do it as it comes. Sometimes I'll have a feeling or an idea, or something will spark an interest about what's going on around me or what I've been going through. And when I'm doing the writing, I'm not really worrying about the delivery or how it's going to sound. I just want to get that, melody and the words and the structure down, how I think it will, work. And then over time, it can evolve into something else. I mean, Lift Up literally did not sound anything like what you hear today. It was started as like a angry kind of, I'm mad at the world, what is happening, just this frustration. And it kind of morphed and evolved as time went on and as events occurred and, different things were brought to the forefront of the media. I was like, okay, this is not a time to be upset. And yes, I'm upset, but this is not the message that I need to portray right now, because I was talking to friends and talking to family. And what I thought was really needed right now was, to come together and like lift up. So I was thinking to myself, I had that chorus, I had that lift us up chorus, but the verses were very different. And I had to switch that to have the same intent, but to deliver it differently. So it could be sweeter in a way, and it wouldn't be as harsh and as blunt, because I'm not trying to tell somebody what to think or what to do. I'm just trying to offer what I'm feeling at the moment. I think it depends on the person and it depends on the writing process, but I never just write a song and then I'm like, okay, it's done. I can always go back to it. It can always improve. It's never done until it's done, right?
Right. Now, with this song in particular, I mean, like 2020 has been such a heartbreaking year. And as you mentioned, like there's been a lot of emotions where it's like anger, and then there's like fear, and then there's just trauma going around. Was there a specific moment that kickstarted Lift Up for you?
To be honest, I was sitting in my room. It was right before everything went into like full lockdown. So maybe like the first 2 weeks of March, before everything closed and before my school closed and everything. We actually had to put down my dog after 13 years, who was like a very, for me, and I know for a lot of people, dogs, it's more than a dog, it's family. And having my dog in my life through every single up and down and everything, she was always there. So I was in a place, I was really upset and I was, distraught. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, I'm feeling so horrible right now. And then I'm seeing on the news people losing loved ones and, all of these people dying and all of this chaos that's happening. And I don't know what to do. I kind of felt helpless in that moment. And when I feel like that, through any hard times in my life, I've always turned to music, and it's always been my saving grace and where I can process all of my thoughts and, you know, get out what I'm feeling, where I couldn't do that in conversation. So I kind of just sat down. I was like, all right, I'm at the piano. We're in lockdown now. You know, I'm feeling all of these feelings and I don't know where to direct them to. So I sat down and I just started writing it. And it just kind of had a life of its own.
Wow. That's that we're going through something like that with our pet at the moment. So I
Oh,
can
I'm
totally
so
like
sorry.
understand like what's going on. But like you know, having dealing with those emotions and at the same time putting them to paper, knowing that there's an audience that's going to listen, you know, that vulnerability like aspect, like is that something that you do you consider at all, or is just you're just in that mode or in that zone that's like, this is how I feel, this is what's coming out?
I think I do consider that. I just want my music to spark conversation and to make people feel better if I can in that way. And I think that the only way to do that is to be vulnerable, because if I'm painting a perfect picture, then how are people going to connect to me? Right? So, you know, nobody is perfect. Everybody has flaws. And I think that in the media today, it's kind of, and like especially social media, it's really, people paint a perfect picture. And that's not reality. Everybody is messy. Everybody has stuff. Nothing is as it seems, you know, behind closed doors. And I kind of, it's hard for me. No, don't get me wrong. Like, it's hard to be vulnerable, and it's not something I like do voluntarily. I don't like to put my guard down unless I feel ready to do that. But I think that it's bigger than that. What's going on right now is bigger than me, is bigger than you, is bigger than, you know, anything. It's the whole world is going through this together. This isn't something that we've been, you know, we've never gone through something like this. And it's really detrimental to society. And it just really puts in perspective what's happening right now and the changes that we need to make as a united people to try to, you know, make a better future for, you know, the generations to come. And I know that my generation is, you know, the generation that can do that, and the generation after us. And it's really, we have to make some noise, I think. And, you know, everybody does that in a different way. And if this can be my small contribution, if it can do anything for anybody, that's really what I hope. That's really what I want out of my music, is to affect people and to make people feel less alone and seen, because I know that I needed that at times, and I found that in music, and I just want to pay that forward.
It's amazing. That's amazing. That like I admire artists that have that mentality, because you know there's people out there that they're in the music industry for various different reasons, but you're there to kind of lift people up in a sense, and help these people, help your audience. That being said, like it's interesting how you can touch on these difficult topics with your music, but at the same time create them in a way that they're more anthemic than a sad song. What is that process like for you? Is that just a natural process for you, like making these songs so anthemic, like the way that they are? Um, because that's one thing that I love about music, that I can, depending who's listening to it, and depending what they're going through, that you know, there's a different idea of what that song is about, of what, or how that song is helping them. But what's that process for you when it comes to the writing the anthemic songs?
When I'm writing for me. And then when I'm thinking about, okay, this is something that I'm going to put into the world, I'm trying to see it from other people's shoes and how it could affect them. I want it to be, you know, broad enough that people can interpret it in their own way, and in a way that is relevant to what they're going through. And I think that I have made a lot of anthemic songs when I think about it, but that wasn't necessarily the intention. The intention was just to speak my mind and try to connect to people. And if that became something of itself, then, it seems to be a pattern for me, even though it wasn't my intention. My intention was just to make good music that touched people. And in a way, that anthemic type of, lift up mentality is kind of paired with that in a way. So I think that when I was writing it, I didn't have that intention, but it evolved into that. And then when I realized that this was what I wanted to put out into the world, I had that intention, the anthemic way, when I wanted to record it a certain way and I wanted to put it out into the world a certain way. Then that's when the wheel started turning and I was like, I want this to be an anthemic, lift us up. Or for my other songs as well that I've released, that's the, trajectory of where I want it to go once I've made it and once I've chosen how I think it should be recorded and what I think should be shown to the world.
That's amazing. Well, that's amazing. I feel like when I picture songwriters, especially songwriters that have songs like yours that, lift people up and help people go through these difficult times, like I picture when you're watching a movie and you're watching your favorite superhero, like kind of saving someone and then just feeling like collapsing after because they've used all their strength to kind of protect you. Do you feel that when you're writing these kinds of songs, especially like Lift Up?
That's a good question. I think that, do I feel that I'm using all of my strength and then it's kind of like a release in a way? Is that what you're asking?
Whether it's a release or even like you just, all your strength is gone. Like you just released everything out that it's like you can't even move. Like I've had artists that have told me that, like after they write a specific song or a certain song, it's just like they needed to kind of take the rest of the day off because it was like they were so overwhelmed by it.
Yeah, I think that it depends on the song. It depends on the reaction that I get. There was when I was a teenager in middle school, I wrote a song called Try to Break Me, which was my first single. It was an anti-bullying anthemic song after going through bullying myself. And a few years later, I performed it at this concert and a girl came up to me who was older than I was. I was maybe 16 at the time and she was in her 20s. And she said, I didn't know if I was going to come to this tonight. I just got out of a facility. I tried to kill myself last month. And this song made me feel less alone. And that was a moment where I felt overwhelmed by, the reception that I got from that song and what she felt because of what I sang, where it was something that I went through a few years before, feeling, bullied and not able to fit in. And I wrote that song and then it affected her in a totally different way. And she, felt that through her perspective and what she was going through. And that was really a, light bulb moment for me, being like, okay, like this is what I need to do in my life because that's the best feeling I've ever had in my life, having someone tell me something like that. So yes, when something like that happens, it's a real, you have to stop for a minute and breathe and remember that moment because there are far and few of those. And it's something that really shapes you as a person and makes you want to continue and feel like, okay, I have to keep going because that's it right there. That's better than anything. That's better than, a standing ovation, having someone talk to you right to your face. And I'm a person, I hate texting and over the phone. Like I want to talk to you in person and like really focus on you, all of my attention. And like, that just made me feel seen at like every age, as a young kid, as where I was at the moment. It just was a really, full circle moment for me. So yeah, in that way, it was kind of like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't, like I told her, I was like, take all of the merchandise, whatever you want, I'll you know, please, like, here's my information, reach out to me anytime, type of thing like that, because I felt so loved and, you know, that I could help in some way. And that just made me feel great.
Thank you for doing what you do.
Well, thank you for doing what you do. I mean, this is awesome. I've watched all of your interviews and it's really cool. I've just been going through it all. And I'm like, he really knows how to get right in there. Those real good
Yeah.
questions.
Well, you get me too. Like I've been having chills this whole conversation.
Oh, that's nice. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's people who love music and are able to talk about it. I think that it just comes through, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, thank you again for creating music. Thank you for being honest with your music, and thank you for taking the time to even talk to me.
Well, thank you for taking the time. I'm flattered, and you know, it's been a great time, and, you know, I really, you know, I love to talk about this type of stuff, and especially to someone who understands it like you do.